Welcome back. I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix. Our next clinician has been a part of NMRA since the very beginning. He himself is a modeler, has a model weathering company, and is also a professional railroader. He is very excited to share his railroad experience and knowledge with us today to help create our own operating sessions. Please welcome Joey Giunto.
Hey everyone, Joey here, and it's really great to be part of the NMRAX crew again. And today I'm going to show you some fun and easy model railroading operations. Like Speed said, I am a professional railroader. I work for a short line railroad, and I have gained so much experience when I started this past April. And so we're going to get started on showing all the different kinds of operations that you can do for your model railroad. So let's get started here. And here we are. All right. So easy and fun model railroad operations by Joey Giunto, Touch of the Brush Model Weathering. And so we're going to get started here. And this is what I'm going to be showing you and sharing with you guys is that you can do this with any kind of layout. It doesn't matter what the size is, point to point, loop, running. It all can be done no matter what kind of model railroad layout you have. So let's get started here. So the materials that we're going to use are, one, we're going to have a track warrant. We're going to learn about track warrants. A track warrant is a set of instructions issued to a train crew authorizing specific train movements. Good for any layout. Like I said, doesn't matter what size. You can have a small 4x8 layout or a large layout. You can use track warrants anywhere. Doesn't require operating signals. You don't have to have operating signals on your model railroad. You can use track warrants instead. On my railroad, we don't have signals. We use track warrants. So it becomes a lot easier. Plus, it becomes more of a challenge sometimes to communicate with the dispatcher or your the crew members that you're working with, like the other train movements, and make sure you are communicating properly, writing down the correct information. So it becomes sometimes more of a challenge than just looking at a signal. But also, if you do have signals on your model railroad, on the real railroads, sometimes you will need a track warrant in between signals from milepost to milepost or from one signal to another. It just depends if you have maintenance away crews or if you have a certain amount of distance you can only go because another train's occupied another track or a signal may be out. And so you need a signal maintainer that's working on the signals. You may have to have a track warrant. And that's actually a cool thing you can do on your model railroad. You can say, okay, in this operating session, all of our signals are out. They're not working. We have to use track warrants. And oh my gosh, now you're having a whole different kind of challenge for your operators. And also a layout owner and or a dispatcher gives out the warrant to you. If you don't have a dispatcher, normally the layout owner would give you the permission for track, or if you have a dispatcher, you can use a dispatcher. All right, we have a daily operating bulletin. Daily operating bulletin lists the items that are on the railroad that are either, let's say you have a signal that's out or a crossing gate that is malfunctioning, or there is certain rail that you need a slow water to go over the rail, or certain ties that need to be replaced, so you have a slow water. These are things that the maintenance of weight will give you, or a dispatcher will give you. They have to make sure you follow throughout your route. That way you can be safe and know that these certain items are coming through. And we'll look at something here. So here's something a little more zoomed in. Is what a daily operating bulletin will look like. Very simple. You have your items on the left side. We only have five items. So we'll go across. So the middle one is your first item. We have 10 miles per hour, milepost 350.43. The bridge walkway is out of service. Below that, proceed at restricted speed, 20 miles per hour, milepost 358.0. Account rail conditions, meaning the rail is maybe a little kinked here and there, and so you have to go slow. And you have your locations, and your locations are here: Evansville, Shirley, Annandale, Bell, and Smith. Smith is our foreman, maintenance away. He's the one that put these in place. And so if you have a layout, you can have items on your left side here, And let's say you have that 10 miles per hour or those conditions, you have the locations on your layout. And if you put your last name as the layout owner on the very right hand side. And so you have a daily operating bulletin. Now, the number 100, I just put 100, but this is something that's very simple that we all use on the railroad I work on, as well as other railroads, of course. And today, this is our daily operating bulletin, number 100 for December 18th, 2021. And so we're going to go for our next materials. It's our switch list. We all need a switch list because today we're going to be operating a switcher, and this is what a basic switching list will look like. Okay, we have the train on top is a bell switcher, number 2576. 2576 is our motive power number. It is in Evansville, and to the right is December 18th, 2021, the date. Now we have the sequence of cars that we need the block. So CRYX 1270, that's going to our industry in Safeway. We have the spot on Bay 1. The commodity is empty. It's an empty car. It needs to be spotted to be loaded. And the date that it needs to be spotted is today on December 18th, 1/8. And that came from the road train from CR is Conrail. It came from a Conrail train, and that train number or the train symbol is OISE, Oak Island, Selkirk. So you can do whatever you want with the date, the road, the train. If you have a certain railroad, you put that here. This is your very basic switching list. And you can there are programs you can make all sorts of things. This is something simple out of WordPerfect for Microsoft. Okay, and you can just switch and change whatever you want based on your layout operations. Okay, so that's your whole list there of all the cars. We have a CNW car that also needs to be spotted at Safeway. A CPAA, which is a covered hopper, that's going to Tyson Grain. A Missouri Pacific grain hopper is going to Tyson Grain as well. You can see those are loaded, so those have to be unloaded at the industry. A UTLX, we have Tyson Oil, that is a tank car that needs to be spotted on West 1. And we'll get into all these spots later on in the clinic. That's loaded. But you see the time has changed right here, 12:17. That means it came in yesterday from the Conrail's train, Oak Island, Selkirk, OISE from yesterday. So it really needs to be spotted today. Otherwise, our customers are going to be mad at us, right? So we have a Virginian and Ohio boxcar that's going to American Appliance. That's going to be spotted on Bay 2 at American Appliance. That's loaded. And we have a WCRC, which is a lumber flat, central beam flat. That's going to our team track. And that needs to be just spotted, and it's empty. It needs to be loaded. All right. And then below that are the cars that we need to pull. So it will say pull in the middle. Those are the cars that we need to pull out of the industries, and then they need to go back to the yard because they're going on the Conrail train, the counterpart SEOI, Selkirk back to Oak Island, which is to the right here. So we have UPFE, reefer. It's going to be pulled out of Safeway. We have a Tyson Grain covered hopper that needs to be pulled out of Tyson Grain. Tyson Oil needs a tank car that needs to be pulled. That's empty. And in American Appliances, we do have a box car that needs to be pulled because that is also empty. And you see the date is 12/18. All of those have to be emptied and pulled out today. So that is something that's very simple you can have for your operators. And so, yeah, let's go to the next material list thing here. Ooh, hours of duty record. This is something that we have on the railroad I work for. And you can find all sorts of different kind of records. And this is something to me is fairly simple. It does look complex, but I will explain. You have employee name, which is the name of the operator, right? You have the job or train that you work on. We have over here, it says OCC, which is employee occupation, conductor, engineer, maintenance of way, snack giver, anything like that. And then right here, you have the prior time, you're off. It's prior time off. So let's say you had an operating session the month before, you can put the month and the date of your last operating session. Location on duty. The location is where you're starting your train, or where you start at a certain station or yard. The date Obviously, the date and the time you're on duty, which is right here. You put, let's say, 0800, right? The time you're relieved. You can be, once you're done with your session where you are, that's the time you're relieved. And if it's the same as the time you're released, you that's also the same thing here. Now, let's say you're in the middle of the layout and the operate session ends, just like the real railroad. Your 12 hours of duty are up. You cannot operate anymore. So the time you're relieved will be where your train has parked. And so you have to put the location, the date, and the time there. And then the time you're released is the time you're back at your either your hotel, your depot, or the rail yard which you have started from, or where you are eventually need to stay until you go to your next operating session or your next train on the real railroad. And then you just calculate the total time you're on duty to the right. Limbo time we will get into later on, but simple limbo time is after 12 hours of duty has ended. That extra time, either you have to be picked up in a crew van and driven to, let's say, a hotel or to back to a yard. Let's say it takes 2 hours to drive from where your train is parked to the yard. Those 2 hours would go into limbo time, which is right here. And then you add your right here underneath, you'll put employee occupation, let's say conductor, and mode of transport is COV, which is your crew van, and then probably time off 0 because you're on the same date, the same time, and the time from where you've been picked up and dropped off are over here. And other remarks, we usually will put the driver's name and that they drove us. And then the bottom here is consecutive number of days with a duty start is the days you have worked on the railroad. So let's say today's the first day, the second day, we'll put day number 2. The monthly hours of when you started, let's say, is 12, and because you started yesterday, which is a 12-hour shift, and today you've worked a full 12 hours, so you add another 12, that becomes 24 here. And your monthly limbo time, let's say you had 2 hours of limbo, you put the number 2 here. So yeah, it may seem a little overwhelming, a little confusing, but we're going to go through this and I'll show you more. Oh boy, everybody's favorite as a conductor, class 1 brake test slip. If you want to be super realistic, you can have a brake test slip to check your train in the rail yard. And once you go through your whole layout and you're running your train, something may happen, like a handbrake may be on, or your train hits a hot box or whatever, something like that. You can play around and make those kind of fun games on your layout. And so you will have something like this, which is a brake test report showing, hey, I checked my train in the yard. It looked good to go. All the brakes have released. They set fine, and now I got a hot box in the middle of my layout somewhere, or the layout I'm working on or operating. So a brake test is fun to have, and adds just a little more excitement and a little more realism when you're working and operating a model railroad. And what I have here, we have communication devices. This is the actual radio that I use on the railroad. You can use radios, a phone, like a flip phone or a landline phone, to call from dispatcher or layout owner to your fellow crewmen that you're working with. The smartphone app like Zello. Zello is one that actually Speed Moeller and I, we use on his operating session. We use Zello app, which is a radio communication app that you can use on your smartphone, or verbal. I'm Italian. I'm from Brooklyn and Staten Island, New York, and so you could just yell across the room. That works too if you want to yell across the room and say, "Hey, where's my train?" You could do stuff like that too. So communication devices adds a lot of flavor, a lot of fun to your layout, and very simple, like radio walkie-talkies. You can find very inexpensive walkie-talkies that work really, really well, or like a free smartphone app. All right, here we go. Are we all ready? I think I'm ready. I already have my vest on. All right, we arrive at the depot. There's our locomotive. The call time for us is 0800-0800, which is 8 o'clock a.m. We need to get dressed. Now, I hope you had your clothes on already when you enter the depot. What I mean by getting dressed is you have your vest, you got your boots, you got your gloves, you got a hat, your safety glasses, which I should put on my eyes since we're going to be operating a locomotive and switching cars in the yard. And we need to verify the daily operating bulletin number 100. We need to get a track warrant, a study switch list, we have to study the switch list, and then a crew briefing. Whew, I know it's a lot, right? And believe it or not, I could get that all done in 15 minutes. But it took a while to get there. So this is something you do when you first start your layout operation. You need to get your verified DOB, track warrant, study the switch list where you're going to be working in the yard, if you're working in the yard, or the train that you're going to be running on your layout, and have a crew briefing with your fellow operating session member, because that brother or sister is going to be your buddy, and you're going to be a family while working those 3-hour operating sessions. All right, now we need to verify our DOB number 100, and so we are just going to scroll back to our DOB here, because I think that one's not working. All right, there it is. All right, so we have a daily operating bulletin number 100. And so I will call the dispatcher, boop, 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 right? And it say, this is the bell switcher number 2576-2576. We are on duty at 0800-0800. We have engineer Smith, Giunto is conductor. We have a daily operating bulletin number 100-100 on today's date, December 18, 2021, 1/8. And then you say on the bottom here where it says DOB 100, it consists of 5 items on one page. DOB number 100-100 consists of 5 items on one page. Over. And then the dispatcher will repeat that. If there are no additions to this or deletions, meaning there aren't any of the items canceled, then you can verify on the bottom here on the screen. DOB number 100-100 is verified. And I can't see it because of the screen sharing, but that's okay. You can see where it says there, dispatcher is Robinson, copied by conductor Giunto JG, which is me. How wonderful, right? And so that's it. That's all you need to do. And that's something you can use as your operating session on your communication devices. And we're going to go back to this now. Where are we? Here we are. Okay, so you check for additions and or deletions, verify the time, the date. So here it is again. DOB number 100 is verified at 0725 hours on December 18th, 1/8/2021. Dispatcher Robinson. Dispatcher say, roger that. You guys have a great day. Awesome. We finished that. You always repeat the instructions given by the dispatcher. Always, always, always. Now, track warrant. Here we go. This is everybody's fun part. It's a lot. It took me a bit to get used to this. I'm still getting used to this. Track warrant. Okay, call the dispatcher. If you ready to call, you say, okay, DOB is completed. Now we need a track warrant. You repeat the instructions given by the dispatcher, just like the DOB. All right, this is our track warrant. Hope everybody can see this. We have track warrant number 5225 to the number 2576. So what we'll say is we'll like a track. We request a track warrant to work between Evansville and Bell to engine numbers 2576-2576. Over. And then the track warrant or dispatch will give you the track warrant number, which is up here. He'll say to the number 2576 and the date. He'll give you the checkbox for the work between and the box 16 and all the other ones down here, which track one has 3 boxes marked, box numbers 4, 16, 17. So we'll go through each one very quickly. It's not hard at all. Number of the track warrant is 5225 to the engine number 2576, right? December 18th is the date. We want to work between because we're working between back and forth between Evansville and Bell. Okay, you can put a milepost here in each end. So you can even say work between milepost 376.4 and milepost 475.0 on the main line. You know, this depends what you have on your railroad, or very simple, just a station or the town you're working in, or yard to yard. So here is Evansville and Bell is what we're going to be working with. And checkbox 16 down here, track bulletins in effect. DOB 100, right? That's the bulletin we have for today. We also have something a little extra. Number 17 is other specific instructions. We have to stop and flag a crossing at milepost 376 on the main line at 7th Street. Okay, so we have to remember when we're going up to milepost 376, we have to stop the train and flag that crossing, stop traffic because the crossing is malfunctioned. that wasn't on the DOB, sometimes the dispatcher will give you extra instructions on a track warrant. Okay, another challenge or something you can add to your operating sessions or surprise your crews who are operating your layout. Track warrant has 3 boxes marked. They are box numbers 4, 16, and 17. So he gives you all of that information, and now we're going to read it back. Track warrant number 5225, 5225 to number 2576, engine number 2576 on today's date, December 18th, 1/8/2021. Checkbox 4, work between Evansville and Bell. Checkbox 1616, track bulletins in effect, DOB number 100-100. Checkbox 1717, other specific instructions, stop and flag crossing, milepost 376 on the main line at 7th Street, SEVEN, 7th Street. This track warrant has 3 boxes marked. They are box numbers 4, 1616, 1717. Over. You would say that's a good read. Number 5225, 5225 at an okay time of 0730. Dispatcher Robinson. Over. Then you repeat. Roger that. Track warrant 5225, 5225 to engine number 2576. Okay time at 730, 0730. Dispatcher Robinson. Good read. You guys have a great day. That's it. Okay, and that will take some time to get used to, but you can print these certain track warrants off, and you can have a tiny layout or a switching layout, point to point, and this can add so much flavor and so much time to your operating sessions, and it can make it more realistic in this way as well. Okay, brake test. Everybody's favorite as a conductor. If you're a conductor, you love your brake test. Why? Because you have to walk your train, or if you're lucky, you have a four-wheeler or a off-road vehicle that you can drive. But I actually walk my train, and sometimes we have 86 cars to 110. Just depends. Anyway, brake test. You set up your brakes. You walk. It says walk down the side of a train. Not true. You set up your brakes. You walk both sides of your set. Then you release your brakes. You walk one side of your train. Now, obviously, on a model railroad, you don't really necessarily have to do that, but you can add that time to your operating session. You know, let's say, okay, if I have to set a brake test, I have to count 20 seconds before I can depart my train or before I call dispatcher or whatever. So it says here, set up a time duration for your brake test for realistic operation, or set out a bad order car if there is one. So if there's a car, let's say you're working your train and you look at your paper and there's a bad order car on your switch list, you have to set that car on a different track. You can't bring it with you. And that happened to me yesterday, believe it or not. We had a covered hopper that was empty, but the spring was missing. And so I had to set that car out in the yard, reattach my entire train, and finish my brake test before departing the yard. It happened yesterday. So it does happen. Place flag or a FRED, which is end of train device, if train travels more than over 20 miles away from your terminal. So let's say you have a layout that's not huge, but okay, let's say you have a double deck main line, double deck train layout, right? And let's say your layout goes from milepost 100 to milepost 200. You're going over 20 miles, right, on your model railroad. So you could need to place a flag or end the train device. That's under our rules and regulations. So that adds some interest and some challenge for your model railroad operating session. And let's say you have a small layout, like a 4x8. After maybe 5 loops or 5 laps around your layout, if you have to take 5 laps around your layout, you have to put a FRED on your train. If you take only 2 laps, you don't have to have a FRED or a flag on the back of your train, right? So it says here, loads 130 tons, empties 30 tons, car length 50 length. If you want to calculate your tonnage or the length of your train, you do your loads are normally 130 tons, sometimes 140. Empties are 30 tons. Your car length is an average of 50 cars in length for freight cars, 85 for passenger. So let's say we're not using any electronic devices, no calculators. You have to do the work by hand. I had done that in the past. It just happens. And so here is our brake test. And you put your date, December 18th, 2021, your time. Did the brake test at 8:45 in the morning, 0845. Locations in Evansville. And here's my name, the QP, the qualified person performing inspection. is right here, and I also sign it. Total cars we're taking on the bell switcher is 7. Condition of the brake test is good. No set outs, thank goodness. I mean, no bad orders, thank goodness. The train is off air when we get to the town of Bell, or the yard in Bell. That's the same date and the time. Whenever the time we get there, we'll put that time. We have 4 loads we're taking with us and 3 empties. The tonnage for that is 610 based on our calculations from loads to empties down here. And our length is 350. Okay, 50 times 7 is 35. Add 0, 350, 350 feet. Special weight distribution, none of that. We don't have to worry about anything like that. No hazmat. We don't have any hazmat or flammable liquids or dangerous cars on our train. So NA for that as well. Car number, location, defective cars. NA. Now, if you have a bad order, you have to put the car number at what track you put it on here. Your relief crew information. If there's anything here that you know your 12 hours is going to be up, you're not going to make it. There's something they need to know. You put it here. Again, this all can be added throughout your operating sessions, and you can change it up for your operating crews. But we don't have to worry about that for relief crew information. Oh boy, Superseding track warrant. So we got a track warrant. We did our brake test. We're about to leave the yard. All of a sudden, number 5374 calls us, and you can add that to the operations. Like, dispatcher can call you and say, hey, get another train on the main line that needs to use some track. Okay, fine. Superseding track warrant. Superseding means you're canceling one track warrant and getting another one. Supersede means take the place of, right? So to the right is our new track warrant, and we're not going to go through it like the dispatcher. We already did that, so I'm going to read it off. Track warrant 5226 5226 to engine number 2576 2576. Today's date, December 18, 2021. Check box 1. Track warrant number 5225 is void. That is the one we used in the past. We're not using it anymore, so it is voided, and you have to write void on your last track warrant. Check box 4. We're between Evansville and Bell. Still going through there. Now we have check box 11. That's new. Between Evansville and milepost 387.0, 387.0. On the main, make all movements at restricted speed. Limits occupied by number 5374 5374. That's the locomotive and the train that needs to come out of the yard and use track. Track bulletin is still in effect. The stop and flag is still there. And we have the time down there. And then the box numbers are 1, 4, 11, 16, and 17. Very easy. Robinson is still our dispatcher, so we're good there. So now we have a new track warrant, and we're sharing it with another train. A work between is always used when you have another train that needs the track as well. Sometimes both to have both directions, or you can do a box 2, which is a proceed from wherever you are to where's the furthest you can get to. We do a lot of that on my railroad because we also have excursion passenger trains. We also have mains away. So it just depends. And we can talk about that later on if you want. Oh boy, everybody's favorite too, a hot box detector. Hot boxes, or hot bearing detectors, are used to measure the temperature of the journal bearings of a train. Everybody's favorite as a conductor. And it's very interesting when you get hit by a hot box because you have to stop your train or get off your train and check which car it is. And so with the model railroad, you can build an operating detector, or you could do something which is a lot easier, a lot more fun. And when a train passes using a playing card, like an index card, or a play card, like a Monopoly card, shuffle in a random hotbox card with the axle or card number. So your card can read hotbox detected on axle number 32, or the 7th car, which will be the one you want to put down, must wait 1 minute before departing. So you have to that crew has to wait 1 minute before they can depart their train. Now you delayed everybody else on your on your layout, right? So yes, we all look like that as employees when we hit hotbox. I do anyway. You must walk your train. You add the time, right? You add the time. You must walk your train. That adds time to it. You have to call your train master and or dispatcher, verify the location, the time, and the departure, verify the car number and the issue. So, for instance, oh boy, our train, our bell switcher did hit a hot box. So we have bell switcher stopped by hot box detector at milepost 362. Detected car MP 712316 car did not release properly, stopped at 10:32 hour and departed at 10:58 hour over, right? So meaning you stopped the train at 10:32 a.m. and after you checked your car, you departed at 10:58 from the location where you stopped. Train master won't be happy. They never are happy. No one likes a hot box, and we want our train master to always have a smile on his or her face. Trust me. So the train master's not going to be happy. You're delaying other trains on the main line because now you just stopped your train because you have a hot box. But you do have a good brake test, right? It said good in our brake test, but issues can happen en route. It happened to me multiple times. For instance, the retainer valve was knocked down by the trees. Okay, we actually hit a tree coming around a curve one time, and two of my retainer valves on the side of the car, which sets the brakes, were knocked to the right. It set the brakes, which caused the cars to have a hot box because the brakes were on, even though the train was released. It happens. Sometimes the engineer using too much air. If they don't use the air properly, going up and down the mountain on my railroad, sometimes the brakes don't release properly and we hit by the hot box. And so there could be nothing wrong with your train, just the brakes didn't release all the way. So it happens en route. And the cool thing about a model railroad, you can add anywhere around your route. And the dispatcher can just pick a random spot where your train's going through and say, hey, you got a hot box. Or like I say, a playing card. Once a train passes a signal or a certain milepost or town, they have to pick up that playing card. It may say no detection, or it may say you got a hot box, and shoot, now you have a hot box, right? All right. Finding a hot wheel. Okay. Detector at milepost 362. You have a hot box. Hot wheel axle 50. Total axles 212. Detector out. You can have something like that. That's what a hot box detector will say. So an example, let's say you have 212 axles, but two of those motors are 6 axles each. Those are total of 12 axles total. Okay, you have 200 car axles on your train. Those are 4 axles each car, right? So 212 minus 2 of those motors are 200 axles divided by 4 is 50. So the 50th car is the one with your hot wheel. That's how you calculate what car you have on your what car has a hot box. And you must check the first 2 cars and the last 2 cars, because that may, you may have other issues along that whole string of cars from the car that you're actually checking. It happens. So here is an example of you could calculate what hot box you have. All righty, now we're meeting train number 5374. We're chugging along the main line. And then we have the radio train number 5374 to verify location. There's bell switcher to number 5374, over. This is 5374. All right, we're coming along, milepost 387 on your side, by your siding. Roger that. So now we have to supersede another warrant because we only have track that's good enough up to milepost 387. We can't go any further than that. So whoop, we have to supersede the last warrant. Now we have a new track warrant, number 5227, which is good between milepost 387 on the main line to Bell and Bell. So we have a work between now 387 and Bell, while the other switcher can go ahead and pull out of the Bell yard and go towards Evansville. So everything else is the same here. We still have the stop and flag crossing coming back, and we have numbers 1, 4, 16, 17, which are the boxes that are checked on the track warrant. So that's our new warrant, is number 5227 from milepost 387 to Bell. So again, you could go through multiple track warrants on your model railroad, and it doesn't have to be a large layout. You can do it as on a very small layout or switching point-to-point layout as well. So now we're passing train 5374. We have a new warrant from milepost 387 to Bell. We passed train 5374 at milepost 387 on the siding, and train 5374 released their track after they depart. So once they release their track to us, we can come back and get a new warrant if we have time to come back to Evansville. We don't have to worry about any other trains because nobody else is on the main line. So that's what avoided looks like. So on the below here, on the very bottom, it says limits reported clear at 1935, dispatcher Muller. Muller is our new dispatcher because Robinson is done for today. So we voided track warrant. So we say track warrant 5227 to the number 2576. well, actually, we say this is the bell switch releasing track warrant 5227. All switches line locked, normal and clear. Over. And dispatcher will give you the time in 1935. Dispatcher is Mueller. So you say number 5227 227 is now released and limits reported clear at 1935 1935. Dispatcher Mueller. You don't need a track warrant once you enter your yard limits, because we're now in Bell, which is our yard. All right, everybody's favorite. I love this stuff too. Spotting cars. Spotting cars. Car spotting is precise positioning of a railroad car for loading and unloading. Customers can have a designated spot for their cargo. So here's a picture of the Arkansas Missouri Railroad. They have two boxcars here that are spotted to load up pallets of crushed paper into their boxcars. And so we have here, customers can have a designated spot for their cargo. Means there's a specific place those cars need to be, and they have to be there. Okay. Now we arrived at Bell. Here's our train. There's our reefer that's head out, CRYX. We have to call our customer, say this is the Bell switcher. We are 5 minutes away from switching out your industry. Okay, don't forget, we have to stop and flag Bell Road. And so use a figure or a red push pin head is what I use. You can use a figure like with a flag or a red push pin. Or if you like using a lot of electronics and those fancy LEDs, you can put LEDs into your crossings and turn them on as a fusee, which is like or a flag. So number 2576, stop the head of the crossing because we have to stop and flag. Whoop, there we are. So flagging the crossing, stop ahead of the crossing. And here we're using a red push pin or figure, but we're using a red push pin to represent a flag that we need to block that crossing. Very simple, very easy, and inexpensive. All right, now we're at Safeway. Safeway has two tracks, two car spots, and the other track has two car storage. It's a two car storage track. Now we have to spot CRYX 1270 on Bay 1, and so we have to cut the rest of the train on the other side of the crossing, which we're doing here. That's just my layout. So pulling up, we have to pull the reefer UPFE 460-412, and then we have to pick up that C&W car on the right here on the right, and set out C&W 600-598 on the storage track. All right, so here we have the C&W car on the storage track, and on Bay 1 is a CRYX 1270 and its correct spot. Next, the handbrakes are tied, and now we're going to Tyson Grain. So that's our next industry. Also, we have a caboose on the end. So caboose and a shoving platform are good for challenges and add some interest to your layout. So cabooses or shoving platforms are a great addition to any operation. Adds a challenge, like I just said. And here at Bell Road, the caboose must be cut off, and a handbrake or wheel chock may be used on the other side of the crossing. And we'll get into wheel chocks in a minute. So we leave the caboose there all by itself. Now we have Tyson Grain. The rest of the train must be cut on the opposite side of the crossing and clear of the crossover switches. Okay, what I'm saying here is on my layout, that's what I have to do. In a real railroad, you may have to do the same thing, or on your model railroad, you can do that as well. You have to give specific instructions written down somewhere, either on your switch list or DOB, or next to your industries, and say, hey, you can only have a certain amount of cars here that can fit. So don't block the crossing. Do not block the clearance points. You don't want to bang into your train switching over to another track, right? So we're going, here we are, Tyson Grain, right? Tyson Grain, one track, commodities, soybean and corn. One car spot over the pit, it can hold up to 4 cars. So you can spot one car in the industry, but the whole track can hold 4 cars. Do not miss the pit. Don't overshoot it. It happens. We've done it. I've done it. Check the pulley cables. This doesn't have a goat or its own switcher. So there are cables that are connected to the car. And once the car is empty, it pulls the car by itself to the empty spot behind the industry. So check those pulley cables. That's what we do. You always have to check. Make sure the empty cars are empty. Always make sure your car is empty, and double check your switch list. So here we go. Oh boy. Okay, well, we're about to pull UP 672-400, but the UP 672-400 is a partial, right? So we're going to get into a partial. A partial is when a car is not fully empty. You must spot it first because it needs to be emptied. I can't tell you how many times I have my whole train ready to go on the main line, and I get a call saying, "Hey, don't take that car. It's a partial. We need it back on the pit to be spotted." Oh boy, right? It happens. So a dispatcher or a playing card or something can say, "Hey, by the way, you can't pull that car just yet. It needs to be respotted." Okay, you got to follow instructions, and so we have to spot this car and do whatever we can with the rest of the operating session. We may later on get a call saying, "Hey, I'm ready to spot the next car." So you may have to come back to this industry and rework it. It happens or not, just depends on your operating session. All right, handbrakes and wheel chocks. Here's a very easy way to do this using a push pin to represent a tied handbrake or wheel chock. Tyson grain does have a slight gray, so these cars can roll, and I don't want any accidents. And so I use a little push pin to hold the car in place as a wheel chock or as a handbrake that has been tied on and locked. Don't block the crossings. Must run around train. The left picture, we are blocking the crossing. We have some angry motorists that are calling you and saying some very nice names to you while you're trying to move your train around. So we want them to have a good day. We want to have a good day, right? So we move that train off track so the cars can get through, and there's our motor is coming back to pick up the rest of the train. Now we coupled to the train on the other end. Time to back up over the Tyson Oil Industry lead. So here at Tyson Oil, we have two tracks named East and West, four designated car spots: track West spot 1 and 2, track East spot 1 and 2. Must spot a car in designated spot. Here is one that says, all right, we have to spot the car, and it has to be on that particular designated spot. So we have to spot UTLX 71802 on West 1. And we also have to pull UTLX 300-318 from East 2, which is shown here. We picked up we spotted a car on West 1, and then we moved we pulled out the car we need to pull out and from East 2. Oh, now we're getting a phone call. Train master calls. Oh boy, right? We don't want train master calling. That's never a good sign. Tyson Oil needs a car on track East, needs a car that's on East 1 to be on East 2 instead. So we have to come back and we have to move the car back to East 2, not on East 1. So a communication device from your dispatcher or layout owner or a playing card will work in this situation. And remember, happy customer is a happy train master means a happy train. We want a happy train, right? So yes, help, please help me. All right, so now we finished all the cookiness when it came to Tyson Oil. Now we're to American Appliances. Okay, American Appliances has two tracks, 7 car spots, 2 coil steel, 2 box cars. And also on the other track here, you can see here in the picture, 3 scrap cars, gondolas, and hoppers. So we have 2 tracks for this industry. Bay 2 is for bulk material, which are loaded, and Bay 1 takes an empty car for finished product. So we pulled the RBOX 3600-05 from spot 1, on Bay 2, and we spot that Virginia and Ohio box car on Bay 2, which is loaded, and there we go. That's easy switch, right? We just flipped that industry. Very simple. Team track. All right, we finished, right? We finished American Appliance. That's simple. Now we got the team track to worry about. So a team track is a siding, switch, or spur that is used by industries that do not have a facility of their own that is serviced by rail. So guys, a team track is the easiest thing you could put on your layout. You don't need a huge layout. You don't need anything major. All you need is a piece of track to hold one car if you want, just one car. And you can have anything. You can do anything with that team track. And you can have a car needs to be unloaded or loaded. You can service your locomotives on that team track. It could be used for anything. And you don't need an actual industry. It's just a track. You can have it like here on the edge of the layout, and it can be used for anything you want. My team track holds 8 cars, and the Bell switchers or the Bell locomotives are parked and serviced there. So I use that team track to service my locomotives. So here we have the WCRC 9240. It's spotted for loading. It's empty. It's going to be loaded with lumber to be taken off to build houses somewhere in the United States. Oh boy. Ring, 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 right? Train master's calling again. Oh, I don't want to talk to train master again. Okay, we have to call, yes, train master, right? So the customer is always right. The customer needs the empty coil steel car pulled from American Appliances now because there are 2 loaded cars that are being delivered tomorrow. So you can use a communication device or a playing card. Or, like I said, train master can call you. Yes, sir. Yes, Skip. And, he'll tell you what they need. Okay, so now you have to move that coil steel car. So we have to pull that coil steel car in picture number 2. I mean, the left picture, and we have to set out the car and now respot that Virginia, Ohio box car, right? Remember, happy customers, a happy train master. We want a happy train. So there you go. We respotted the Virginia, Ohio with a little extra move to set out that coil steel car added to our train to bring back to the yard. So time management. Time management is always good doing an operating session. That comes in time. It comes in time being a railroader. It comes in time working an operating session. So time management. So instead of shoving all the cars and pick up that one coil steel car, I decided to pull that coil steel car all the way around and bring it back to the other end of the train. Why should the conductor walk 4 cars if all he has to do is just hook up to the train and then pick up that one car and bring it around? It's a lot easier walking 1 car than 4 cars. Okay, you may have other trains on the main line that need to come through, so you want to make sure you can work and as safely and as as proficient as possible. So locomotive now run around the train. Conductor is on the point at the very end. We have to shove cars to a caboose. All right, 2576. We got 8 cars to the crossing. Crossing's clear. Shove it back. Over. Roger that. Shoving back. And then we shove back. And hooking up the caboose. We knocked off the handbrakes, laced up the air hoses. It's the end of our shift. Yay, we get to go home. We get to go home finally. The next crew will take your train to Evansville. So they are the ones that are going to bring your train back to Evansville. All right, it's the end of the shift. Your hours of duty record has to be filled out. Don't forget to add your hours to your timesheet. We all like getting paid, right? We want to get paid by our company. Or if you have candy at the end of your operating sessions, we all want that Snickers bar. So you complete your switch list. Make sure your switch list is completed either on an electronic device like an iPad or written down on your switch list for your layout owner to keep for the next operating session so he can set up the next operating session. You brief the next crew on your day, what has happened, what they need to do for the next shift, and have a donut because one of the conductors brought donuts in. You deserve it. Have one of those donuts. All right, hours of duty record. All right, there's my name. There says Java Train Bell Switcher, written out, conductor, hours time before, 12 hours, location 800, and it's all filled out here, signed, and everything's right here. You can come back later on and take a look at what it looks like, but that's what an hours of duty record looks like. Okay, so other challenges. You can have bad order car, right? Must be set out in a siding en route, set out at on a yard track before departure, or you might set it out on a siding somewhere on your layout. Locomotive stalls. You can have a dispatcher call you telling you locomotive stalled. So another crew has to deliver you a new locomotive. So there's another challenge you can have to any layout, any size. Using a blue flag. Blue flags are used to tell railroad operators that workers are on, under, or between railroad rolling equipment. So only the worker who placed the blue flag can remove it, right? So here's very easy. I use a blue push pin as my blue flag. So no one can move it except the person that put it there. Very simple and very fun to use on your operating session. Other challenges here, broken couplers, bad air hose. Must stop a train, set a duration using a playing card. All right, you got a broken air hose, so that takes 10 seconds. You have to stop your train for 10 seconds or 20 seconds, right? Other challenges here, blocking cars to loads to empties. On my railroad, that's what we do. We're blocking cars for other railroads. So for example, we interchange cars with BNSF and Union Pacific. So we have BNSF loads, UP loads together, blocked together, and then blocked with the empties, BNSF and UP as well. And then if you have a caboose on your railroad, you use a caboose or not. Other challenges here, block cars for train directions. So let's say you have 3 tracks on in your yard. So south cars on track 1, north cars on track 2, your local freight on track 3. So there's some added operation. You can have only maybe 4 cars on each little track on your small layout or whatever you have, and simple. You can make this extended amount of time as a challenge to block the cars on specific designated tracks. Something else, a night operating session. Show off the lights, use a lantern or use flashlights or a headlamp, on your head to operate in the dark. So you could do something like that as well, which may be fun for your operating sessions. So again, do I need a big layout? No. Take advantage of the loops, multiple laps around your small layout or your large layout. Take your time with the operating session. Use playing cards like Monopoly, color coded for each operator. Invite other operators, make it a game. Like the first one to reach the yard wins, or switcher with the most industry served wins the game. Offer prizes at the end of your operating session. Take them out for a steak dinner. And end of the day, you have fun. It is a hobby. Last smile. Have a good time with your operating session. And there we go. That's it. Do we have any questions for us? Because I'm sure there are a lot of folks that have some questions for me.
There are quite a number of questions.
All right.
First one, are you allowed to say what railroad you did this clinic's work for? And are you allowed to say what railroad you work for?
Okay, I do work for the Arkansas and Missouri Railroad. So
and the one that you move these cars on?
Oh, this rail. Let me get back here to you. Here we are. Here I am. The railroad that I'm moving these cars for on my layout, that is called the Bale Community Branch Switching Layout. And so I run it's a simple point-to-point layout I have that I switch cars in local industries.
So that is your layout behind you there, right?
That is my layout behind me. Yes, sir.
You mentioned somewhere in the clinic flagging the crossing. Is that with a flagman or a fusee?
Sure. Let's say if you want a fusee, you can light up an LED on the bottom in the road itself, and you just need a little switch to turn on the LED. So that could be your fusee if you want night operations. You can use like a push pin like I use, very inexpensive. You just place it there. Of course, you have the pointed end cut off, and so you just place it on the road. Or if you have a flagman, like an actual figure that you could purchase or add a flag, you can do that. Or if you want to stick a flag into your road or place a flag there, you can do that as well.
Cool. On the earlier track warrant you showed, the first OK time was 7:30, and then the second OK time when the dispatcher called you was 9:32. Did the train move at all between those times?
Yes. So at 7:30 is right before we went on duty at 0800. So we got the track warrant before we got on duty. So we're ahead of everybody else on the railroad. We have permission to go onto the main line. And so the next track warrant, since we're going down the main line, we do on the track, we got a call at 9:30 from the other train crew that they need track as well. Or so we added a joint track warrant together at 9:32.
Okay, so then people want to know all this paperwork that you've shown. Do you know if there are any sources or places you could download these documents? So if they want to do their own?
Yes, there are. You can find them actually online. You can look them up on Google and on the images. You can even create them on your own through your Word software and just print them out, and you can do it that way as well. Or if you have a source of folks who use who are maybe are a railroad, they are a railroader, just block off with the company they work for and just use the actual instruction sheet.
Mm-hmm. And how about the messages that you guys use over the radios? Is there a source for the communication protocols and the typical speech?
Yes. We use on the G Corps, which is our rules and regulations. The Northeast uses NORAC, and if you look up, you can look up online on some of the rules and regulations. You can look into what we actually say on the radio.
Mhm.
There's no profane language. To keep it professional, of course. And we're operating a layout that's going to be professional anyway, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can look that up. And trust me, any of these rules and regulations, you might as well look at tax law. They're very dry. So what I've been trying to explain is the basic, simple, as much as I can, the simplified version of those rules and regulations. But you can go above and beyond and actually use those rules and regulations as they are.
Cool. Do you use brake force charts when assembling a train in the USA?
Do I use what was the question?
It says brake force. It's a chart that shows some brake force. I don't know if
Oh, a chart that
that's
uses brake. Not I've been using just those brake slips. That's the actual brake slip I actually use on my railroad. And because they don't show the company name, I was able to show the full sheet.
okay. So the last serious question: what would be the one foremost thing we could do to make model railway operations more prototypical?
The most fun thing you can do. It's really multiple things. Heck, you can have a vest. Buy yourself a vest. If you want to put your glasses on, you can do that. If you want to have a radio, you can do that. And then you put your backwards ball cap, and now you're ready to rock, because this is exactly what I look like when I go out there. We call it, but no, seriously, there's so many things you can do to make it more. What's the most fun thing? To me, the most fun thing is make it a game and use it prototypical. The railroading is a game. It's a big board game. It's the game of chess. You have to have certain strategies and your moves. I mean, now after the amount of experience I have in this past year, just looking at a switch list, I know what my day is going to look like. And so, you can use this. Just looking at the switch list, jotting down all that information. Yes, it seems overwhelming, maybe a little intimidating at first, but once everybody's used to it, it becomes a little more fun and it becomes more prototypical. And if you're using like playing cards, for instance, you run up to a certain signal and then you get to pick up a card. Like, shoot, I got to wait 20 minutes because now I got a train that's coming past me and I have to wait in the hole for 30 minutes, at a fast clock, if you have a fast clock.
Yeah. Okay, now for the not so serious questions.
Okay.
I might have heard this one myself over the air, but where is your favorite place to stop for pizza when out on the road?
We have a lot of places, actually. The one place we do have speed dial is Domino's. We have Domino's on speed dial. We have a Mexican place on speed dial. We also have Jimmy John's. So if we have track warrant and we need to stop somewhere, we can stop anywhere. Maybe not out. We're hungry. So sometimes there's a certain place we need to stop, or we'll stop a little further up the main line because we know they make awesome burgers. We all do it.
So not to disclose how I know about this, but maybe the Trans Namib or the TX Namib here has to have a pizza joint somewhere. Someone wants to know, what advice can you give Speed to improve his operating sessions?
Provide Domino's pizza.
Good. Were you ever in the Helix?
I was. It's fun.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
I never been in there before. Looks like a lot of fun. Right now I'm in this box right here.
And then when you get a lightning strike near you, does it affect your DCC?
Yeah, it affects the Wi-Fi, it affects my communications, and then I have to go all by hand. Use hand signals, use paperwork, and if it's dark, you can see the frown on my face because I can't figure out where is what, So. And actually, lightning stroke in the yard about 2 tracks away from us. That was pretty scary at that one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, thank you very, very much. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming back to NMRAX.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for participating and having me back again.
For those who are still here, right after the credits, Gordy will come into the studio and he wants to say something. Maybe it's something to do with Christmas, maybe something New Year, maybe something about what NMRAX is going to bring you in 2022. So see you then.
go button. Hey, Marty. Marty. The camera's still on. It's still rolling. Don't go get a sandwich now. It's still rolling. Marty's gone down to the beach. Marty lives like 30 feet from the beach. Marty is like loaded with coin. You see, when Marty's not on camera, this is what he's doing. He's always doing this. Anyways, the guys at NMRX, NMRAX, you got your Marty Jenkins, you got your Gordy Robinson, who's now the president of the NMRA, you got your Speed Muller, you got your Brad Anderson. If I'm missing somebody, I apologize, but those are the names Marty told me to mention. So anyways, these guys work really hard on these videos and getting them out, and the clinicians work really hard. So if you're enjoying it, apparently, according to Tony Cook, I watched his promos, and apparently what you do is you click on you subscribe, like you're getting a magazine, and then you click on the little bell icon. And then you'll get notifications whenever there's a new NMRAX video available. I should be a lot smoother doing this. If I was Burt Reynolds, I would be like way smoother doing this. It should be something like this. That would be much better. All right. Anyways, that's what you got to do. You got to subscribe. You got to click the little bell icon. You'll get tons more videos. These guys are doing an awesome job, a yeoman's job. And make sure you tell them that you enjoyed my promo videos more than you enjoyed Tony Cook's promo videos. That is key. Did I do it right, Marty? Okay. All right. Thumbs up, Marty. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The toilet goes backwards. Yeah, I know that. That's cool. Up, Marty. See ya.